know nuance is lost on this generation, but me personally, I was talking to somebody. I'm pro-life.
Right.
From the womb to the tomb.
That's right.
A lot of people are pro-birth.
Mm-hmm.
Get the baby here, and after that, just let life take over, which I have a problem with. But the bigger problem that I have is that, number one, I'm not a woman.
Right.
Number two, since I'm not a woman, I don't experience the things that you guys experience.
This is true.
So, because I'm not a woman, I don't experience the same thing you guys experience. If I get sexually assaulted, I can't get pregnant.
Right.
You know, if I got bad cramps, I don't need to go on birth control.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we are allowing just men in the room, fueled by some women behind the scenes now? Because it's not just
right.
Because people have voted these individuals office, and it wasn't just men.
Right.
Why is it that we have this crazy notion that if I'm as a pastor here, we're going to do something for the women, we're going to include the women in the conversation, not just make a decision and just.
It's a big disconnect, and it also seems to be happening in areas or by a party that says less government, and yet
right.
This is the government regulating
absolutely
women's bodies. You also said something about pro-life from the womb to the tomb, and yet Alabama and Missouri are two of the few states that still do capital punishment.
Right. Yep.
So how are you pro-life if you can kill people?
Absolutely.
Right? Send them to war. There's just a lot about this that feels to me like it's an attack on women.
It is.
When you make the punishment for a doctor who may abort a woman who has experienced rape or incest, and his punishment is going to be worse than the rapist.
Something's wrong with that.
There's something very wrong with that.
Something's wrong with that.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with that. And my fear, again, I believe that abortion is murder, because I believe that is a life in there from conception.
That's right.
But I do have just this problem with how they're doing this stuff. And they're penalizing the woman, not necessarily the man.
Right.
So you brought up selective government. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing selective biblical values.
Yes.
We want the government involved in this, but not involved in all this.
That's right.
And they told us, the Trump administration and that Republican Party told us, this was about judges.
Yes.
Because they wanted judges in place that would do these things. And guess what? They're doing them.
They're doing it.
Which then is going to feed his base and say, you know what? He did what he said he was supposed to do. They got judges in place to remove abortion. Their hopes are to reverse Roe v. Wade.
Right.
Which my fear is that you're going to go back to women, going to these back alley places and killing themselves. So how do we regulate this situation?
It really, it's such a dichotomy. I don't see the logic. Except for it being an attack. I really do feel it's an attack on women and on poor people. Yeah. Right? And at the same time, I do not believe in abortion.
Right.
But the way that they're going about it
absolutely
is what is frightening, right? And the swiftness in passing this law. Now, they know it's not law because the law of the land really is Roe versus Wade. But these states who are following very quickly, the plan is to then go after the Roe versus Wade, right?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's.
And my thing is, so there's two other layers of this that we can continue to pull out. My biggest problem is how strict it was too.
Yes.
You know, when Tommy Lauren, the conservative one that says a bunch of crazy stuff, says this is too strict, you know it's a problem.
Well, Pat Robertson said the same thing.
And
there are many conservatives who are coming out and saying this goes way too far.
It is way too far.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to do the ectopic pregnancies.
Yeah.
That if you find that after 6 weeks you can't have an abortion, even if it's an ectopic pregnancy. So you're going to risk the life of the mother.
I mean, that absolutely
We're-
risks
like-
the life. And for folks who don't know what that means that the baby's actually growing outside of the womb.
Yeah.
Right? That will kill the mother.
Yes.
And the reality is, I think it was Missouri that said somewhere between 6 and 8 weeks. At that point, most women aren't even aware that they are
That's the
pregnant.
thing, yep.
And that's the point, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it goes back to an attack on women and on women,
Yep.
and that they're lining this up to really reverse Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, and the other part of it is, so you're looking at the Obama administration showed us something. Again, I don't believe in abortion.
Right.
I believe in let's wait till you get married to have sex, all that stuff.
That's right.
We still got to bring up the fact that when the Obama administration made health care and birth control more available, the pregnancy rates
It went
down.
It went down.
So, and the other thing too is that I'm a Christian, but is it my job to force my beliefs on everybody else when Christians are notorious for not wanting beliefs being pushed on them?
That's right.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That all y'all have to follow what I think, but I don't have to follow anything that you think. Something's wrong with that.
You know, and it's do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
In many cases.
Yeah.
So.
And even one politician came out. I read it last night. He said that he called it consensual rape.
First of all, there's no such thing.
What?
Those two words don't even go together.
Right.
What he indicated as I saw him. He was a former policeman for about 30 years, right? Which is, based on his views, that's a little frightening.
Yeah.
And his opinion about rape is that it's either date rape or what he called consensual rape. In other words, there is no such thing as rape, therefore that's not a reason to have an abortion.
Right.
Again,
It's a ridiculous assertion.
yes.
Especially, here's my problem. Republicans don't believe in, conservatives don't believe in abortion,
Right.
but people get abortions all the time.
Yes.
We've heard of politicians who are trying to get reverse abortion,
Right.
but their side chick gets pregnant and they force her to have an abortion.
Well, what you legislate and what your personal life is obviously are two different things.
Which is ridiculous to me.
Yes, it is. Yes,
And
it
then
is.
if your daughter
Hypocritical.
got raped,
Yeah, there's nothing consensual about that, right?
so my problem is you want laws that work for other people except your own family.
Right.
And then when something hits your family, then all of a sudden, let's start making some changes.
And we see this time and time again when they were reversing the Affordable Care Act, but they were still going to keep it for themselves.
Absolutely.
So we see it. They keep showing us.
Yeah.
Right?
But people keep voting this
Yes.
in office.
Yes.
Y'all give us a call at 866-743-8267, 866-743-8267. So the whole bill, again, I don't mind a bill stopping abortion.
Right.
Don't. However, we have to consider everybody else. And consider a 12-year-old girl. Now, again, this is me.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend a 12-year-old girl go ahead and, something happened, whatever. But there's a 12-year-old girl that got raped. She got pregnant at 12. 12 years old, y'all. And she goes on and says, if this bill was in place when I was 12, I would have had to have a baby of somebody that raped me.
Right.
I'm not.
Why would you do that
Right.
to her?
I'm not 12.
That's traumatizing
Right.
someone over and over again.
Right. I'm not saying I agree with it, but
Right.
I'm not 12 and I haven't been raped before. I haven't gotten pregnant.
Right.
So who am I to sit there and tell this young girl, who most women that if they got sexually assaulted at 40, most women won't know how to psychologically process that, or emotionally process
let alone a
that.
child. Right.
So we're seeing this in these southern pro-Republican type states.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen anywhere up in.
You
here.
know, it's we do see it in the red states.
Yeah.
But recently in New York, there was a middle school girl, 13, 14, who was raped by a bus driver. And he basically went unpunished.
Yeah.
no jail time. The least, when they designate them as a sex offender, he got the least amount, so he does not have to go on the registry.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a person who violated a child.
Right.
Right? Fed alcohol to other children, and the judge says he is not dangerous.
Yeah.
If that's not an attack on females and young girls, and that was New York.
Yeah.
And so it's the red states, but it's not just the
no,
red
it's not
states.
just, it's some in the blue, It's some in the blue. And that's unfortunate. But here's my thing. If we're going to regulate contraceptives for women, then you got to be fair across the board. Viagra, Cialis, vasectomies, all those things should not be covered under a health insurance plan. But you don't see them attacking.
Well, who's in the room making the decisions, right? So
you don't see them attacking that.
No.
Which to me is very hypocritical.
Yeah.
Again, my premise is this: is how they're going about it is my issue.
Yeah.
How they're doing this is my biggest problem, and
there's an end game here. When the governor signed it, she said this isn't going into law. The Roe versus Wade outweighs that.
Yeah.
But they know that they're teeing it up with the other states, and when they have enough, they will take this to the Supreme Court. So there's an end game to all of this. Yeah.
And hopefully, by the time it hits to Supreme Court, it will take years for the Supreme Court to do anything. I can't see them doing this quick. Hopefully, we'll have another administration in, which doesn't determine what Supreme Court does.
No, it does not.
But what I'm saying is that overall, is that when new judges may get put in office, for that purpose. So before it even gets there, because we got about almost about a year before the next.
Yeah,
a year and a few months. So hopefully we can try to work some stuff out. But my thing is they're trying to get the stuff, like you said, passed quickly.
That's right.
Without consideration.
And the Supreme Court is leaning more conservative.
It is.
We do have Justice Roberts, while a Republican, he tends not to like to undo past findings. We'll see, but our president was very quick to replace Justice Kennedy with Kavanaugh, who we already know what and how he thinks.
Yep. And this is where my problem goes back to. Y'all didn't like Hillary Clinton.
I had that conversation with someone yesterday.
Republicans, they said, okay, look, they saw the end game.
Yeah.
They knew Supreme Court seats were up. And they said, some of them said, we don't like Trump, but we're going to vote for him so we can get the Supreme Court thing. Our folk, we too busy protesting, online complaining, but not going out to the ballot box because we didn't like a certain person.
Right.
So now you're complaining about something that you were fighting.
But what are we going to do about it?
You didn't do anything about it before. Now you're stuck with this. What are we going to do?
Right.
We're stuck with him for another year and some change. We're stuck with this Senate for a while. You're stuck with all these judges.
And more coming.
Right. And my problem is we're always reactive rather than proactive and preventative. So that's one of my biggest issues. But this whole, they're missing the nuance of all this abortion stuff. And again, now the other side of it too is that you see a lot of women say, well, I don't have to have a baby and it's not fair for me. I shouldn't be forced to be a mother. If you don't, now this is qualified. If you don't want to be a mother, don't have, this is outside of a sexual assault.
Yes.
Don't have sex.
It's true.
Plain and simple.
That's true.
When I was growing up, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yes.
The birds and the
All day
bees.
long.
Something had to happen.
That's right. For that to occur.
Right.
That's right.
Well, what about my life? What about the life of the child that's in you? When do their rights come into play?
Right. And that's why some of the arguments bother me in terms of my body. You can't tell me what to do with my body, except that there's another body growing inside.
Right. There's another body in you.
So that really changes the discussion in my mind.
Right. It's not really living. It doesn't have a heart and a brain.
Yeah, it does.
it may not have a developed heart and brain, but the seed of it's there.
Right.
It's a life because it's evolving, it's moving, it's so don't throw that
Right.
that at me.
Right.
I saw somebody post this on Twitter. I thought it was really good. The person said, "We value pleasure over life," and he said the root of this is when it comes down to sex, we never consider the life part.
Right.
We only consider the pleasure part. So when the life part kicks in from the pleasure, then we're upset.
And we
because
forget what
forget
occurred.
Pleasure creates life.
That's right.
I mean,
Yes.
help me out, y'all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna say every parent, but a lot of parents out there, they didn't necessarily plan.
No.
This is married and unmarried. Plan.
That's right.
You know, they call it a mistake. It wasn't a mistake.
Which is horrible, but yeah,
The baby's not a mistake.
not at all.
It was just you didn't plan it. But
Right.
guess what happens when
That's right. That's right.
it happens?
God had a plan.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There are no accidental kids. There are only accidental parents.
That's right.
The parents didn't plan it, but God had it in the plan.
That's right. That's right.
Let's go to Bunny. I'm sorry, you had to say go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to say he wanted each and one of us who's here for a reason.
Exactly. Absolutely. Hey, Bunny, how you doing?
Hi, Pastor Nick. I'm doing good.
Good,
How
good.
are you doing?
How's it down in Daytona?
It's doing well. Doing well.
Good to hear. What's happening?
You all had mentioned something along the hypocrisy of what's going on, and years ago, my godmother told me about a daughter. This was before it came out that Senator Strom Thurmond had.
Yeah.
A black daughter, and when she was in school, he was giving a whole lot of money to South Carolina State, which is an HBCU. And it was something that was well known. And then a few years later, it came out in the open that as far as to the national media, that he had this daughter. And in the black community, that was no secret.
Yeah.
All right? And my father said something, and he was very conservative with his words, but I was shocked when he said, "Bunny, one thing you're going to have to learn, they will talk white and sleep black. They talk white and sleep black." And when during the days of the the Clinton impeachment period, you had the guy, I think one guy's name was Hyde. I don't know if it was Senator Hyde or Representative Hyde, whoever these different ones were. Well, I don't know if you all remember, but who was the guy who was Larry Flint, who was over the Penthouse magazine? Well, he got so tired of these different people ragging on Clinton that he went and did investigations on their lives. And each one of them, including Newt Gingrich and all of them, had affairs.
Yep.
All right? And so there is, even though I'm speaking in the context of affairs, the hypocrisy of what's going on with not just the rapid abortion issue, and I am I'm pro-life, pro-birth. I don't, I have problems with abortion. However, I agree with you, and I think we're just dealing with not only a spirit of deception that has been unleashed, but also an ancient spirit that is just coming, that was never resolved within the hearts and minds of many of these people. And so that was all I wanted to say. I don't need to keep your line open anymore.
Okay. Thank you, Bunny.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. But again, it goes back to me, this is me personally, is I'm trying to figure out why politicians say what they say. This is on both sides here, too.
Right.
But when I watch Fox News and things, sometimes I wonder if these people really believe what they believe, or are they saying this because it's a good cash cow, or these politicians are saying this because they just want to get votes, knowing darn well behind the scenes they're just kind of playing a game. Because some of the stuff that they say and do is absolutely so ludicrous that it just can't be real. But again, this is just that's my only interpretation.
Fake news.
I'm like, yeah, you can't. Sean Hannity, you just can't. You're not believing everything you're saying.
And you see that with some of the news anchors on Fox actually rebelling and speaking against some of the things because it is so outrageous, right? And sometimes it's about ratings, and sometimes it's about great big paychecks, and so you do those things. Not to say that other networks don't too, because they're considered news stations, but they really should be called opinion stations.
That's true.
Because that's what 24/7 news has become, right? I'm a little bit older than you, Pastor Nick. And so when I was growing up, the news was 1 hour.
Okay.
30 minutes of local, 30 minutes of national.
Okay.
That was it. They read the news.
Yep.
There was no opinion. They did not interject how they felt about it. They read the news.
Yep.
And then it was, good night, David. Good night, Chet.
Yep.
That was it. That was it. But when you're on 24/7 and now it's about the ratings, and you have to be very provocative, and we don't take the time to fact check.
Yeah.
That's what
everybody
do.
wants to be first, not right.
That's right.
The first one to get it out.
That's unfortunate.
Because it's about the money. I was reading something where they said the OJ trial and the OJ Bronco chase was really what helped fueled reality TV later on and the 24/7 news cycle.
Right. Actually, it was before OJ, and it was when President Kennedy was shot. And that was really, that might be a little bit before you.
Well, no,
but that was the time when the news extended itself, and now it was Walter Cronkite at the time. He had to stay on for hours. That had never, ever occurred. And people talked, and he talked about how he felt about that, right? And they went back because now they were just on. But that was the first time, right, where a newscaster took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and just spoke to people and spoke about what he felt. So now it was no longer just reading the news, right?
You saw more opinion come in.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of opinion and what people thought and they felt, et cetera.
And then with OJ, you saw the time frame change.
That's right.
When the Bronco chase was on during the NBA Finals.
That's right.
They minimized the NBA Finals.
So you could watch that. That was
so
like
you could
amazing.
just watch a car go down the highway.
Right.
For a football player.
Yes.
And they
former
football
player.
Yeah. And they saw
real time
what happened.
Yes.
If you do this type of news.
That became the reality TV and the chase and all of that. That's right.
All of that blew up into the 24.
Because everybody turned to that, to just watch this car that was slowly driving down the road, right?
And they were just going.
Yes.
And people sat there.
Because you were waiting for something to
and
happen.
Watched it.
Yes.
And they knew, and right there, they understood even more how much negativity fueled ratings.
That's right.
And they kept it going, which again, it's like with Trump.
Yeah.
He didn't have to pay for much ad space.
No.
Because the news kept covering him.
Right.
The more outlandish stuff he said, the more they covered him. And they said the news stations made billions of dollars during the campaign.
That's right.
The more they covered Trump, the more money they made.
Yeah.
So they're complicit.
Very much so.
Now they're upset because fake news and all that stuff like that. But they were complicit.
Right.
In helping him become
the dollars were coming in, sure.
So because they didn't think it was actually going to happen.
Right.
But all the writing was on the wall. I remember a week or two before the election, I was like, he going to win. You could, as soon as that Comey letter came out.
Yes.
I was like, he's going to win.
He's
going to win.
Yeah.
There was this unsettling thing in the atmosphere. And I'm not
very much
person,
so. Yes.
But it's like, I don't think she's going to win this one.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I went, she's not going to win, but suddenly there was lots of doubt. Yeah. There was doubt and the unsettling, that letter coming out, and I'm like, the timing on this. Yeah.
And then election night, when they were close for a long time.
I had to turn it off because I fell
asleep. I said he's going to win.
I didn't.
I woke up. I woke up about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Looked at my phone.
I was the ostrich, with my head in the sand. I didn't want to see it when it happened, right? Because that doubt was strong. Yeah. And then the reality hit.
Saw those numbers. I was like, buddy. Even if she wins California, that's not enough.
Not enough.
I literally fell asleep, and I said, okay, I'm gonna wake up around. I woke up around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. looked at my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I knew he won. I was like, I knew it. And then I was disturbed.
Yeah.
And I remember praying.
Yes.
And I'm not a spooky person.
Yes.
And something God said, look, this is gonna be one of the greatest ears of the church. I turned over and fell asleep.
Yes. Yes.
I turned over. I passed right out.
Yes.
I was like, cool.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But listen, we need to come up on a break real quick. You're listening to On Point. This is Pastor Nick Smith with I forgot my name for a minute. With Miss Jane Ellen Miller. Danny, we'll be right back. We got some more. I want to talk to you about this SAT stuff.
Yes.
And this college stuff since you work in the schools. I want to kind of
Right.
get your feel on some of this stuff. You listen to On Point. This is Pastor Nick Smith. We'll be right back after this.
Position yourself to receive from God with Bishop David G. Evans teaching When Men Pray.
Have there been times when you have asked someone to pray for you and the prayer has not been answered? Because instead of praying for yourself, you waited until someone else that you thought had more power would pray for you. Prayer is something that you resort to immediately and not as a last resort. You need to learn how to pray preemptively. You need how to pray ahead of time. Don't always be praying in response. Pray proactively. Pray before it happens. Lord, cover my child. Lord, bless my day.
Develop your relationship with God with this dynamic teaching on CD or DVD when you write to us. Visit our website or call 1-800-591-8480.
Hey, y'all, we're back. Let's go to line one. Danny, how you doing, sir?
Good morning, Pastor Nick, and good morning, co-host Noah. How y'all doing today?
Real
Good.
Real good.
What's going on in sunny Florida?
Yeah, well, it's going up into the 90s again, so we're just hanging in there, dealing with the heat.
That's too much.
But,
too much sweat.
I just want a couple of things that I'd just like to add to what y'all have been discussing this morning, is that going back to the news, there was a time that when we had news that they would do what they call investigative reporting, where they actually investigate and then gave you the truth about what they found. But we don't have that anymore. We just have opinionated reports, nothing follow-up, and then we know that something is blatant, but then you have people that accept it as the truth, and no one that goes back to question what that really is. And that's a major, major problem with today's news.
Absolutely. It's so true. It's more about the money than it is about the truth.
And then the other thing I like to discuss, Pastor Nick, that you talked about years and years ago, where you were enlightening us on as far as financial things that were going on, wherein that the banks were more or less wanted us to bail them out and to help them out, and the money was not distributed to the homeowners and what have you, where homeowners were ripped off, where in that instead of paying the money to the homeowners, the government gave the money to the banks. And the bank still was in the place, in fact, repossessed homes and put them on the market for sale, and the homeowners lost their homes.
Right.
Today's situation is, and I want to address this since it's graduation time, is the cost of education. I saw where there's 477.7 million citizens or students that are paying back loans, which is over, I think it's in the trillions. And it's a big ripoff.
Yeah. They believe that the next bubble is going to be a student loan crisis bubble.
It is. It's actually been happening as we've been moving up that hill. Fewer college graduates are actually able to live on their own. You see more moving back home with their parents or having to have, a couple of roommates. That American dream is a little challenging, and they are burdened with huge debt. I've worked in a community college system for a long, long time, and I think it is highly underrated, that a lot of people don't understand it, and that's an opportunity if you are going to go to college, that or 4-year institution, that you do your first 2 years there.
Absolutely. Save
Because those first 2 years of what they call general education courses, your English, your math, your history, your social sciences, are the exact same that at a university, but at a much reduced rate. And also at a time when students 17, 18 are going to college and they really don't know what they want to do, right? And they're switching majors and they're trying different subjects. Time to do that, and the place to do that is at a community college, so that you do, and then you're able to transfer. All of these community colleges have what they call articulation agreements with 4-year institutions and universities, so that your credits transfer over, right? And so cuts your debt tremendously. The college where I'm working in Maryland, they have what they call a dual program, and so there are a number of high school students who are actually taking community college courses. They graduated yesterday with their associate's degrees. They won't get their high school diplomas until next month. Right?
We had a couple kids here do that.
Yes. And so they're starting 2 years. They'll start as juniors when they go to college, and their debt. So there are ways, right? But I think that's correct, the debt that people have. And more people who are older and really close to retirement age are still owing student loans. Yeah.
So Danny, and this is where I think millennials get some of a bad rap, still living with their parents. The difference between millennials and boomers is when boomers got out of college, they had jobs available for them. Millennials are coming out of college. There's not that many jobs out there for them because they came out of college during a recession. So it's kind of hard to.
Right. It's very, very different.
The cost of living is different.
That's right.
College used to be what? Maybe
while I had student loans.
Semester.
Right. While I had student loans and I had out-of-state student loans, that rate is much different from the way that they have astronomically grown today, right?
Yes.
When I was at Temple, the basic tuition, this is not room boards, I took the train over, was $14,000. That was back in 2000.
Right.
I mean, and then staying on campus was another 10, 14. I mean, it's totally different.
Don't add books.
Yeah. Food, what to eat. I lost so much weight my first year. Danny, how's your wife, man?
She's doing great.
Could afford to eat.
Yeah.
I was eating donuts every day.
That's what they call the freshman 10.
Right.
Because you don't
I
eat
actually
right.
lost weight. I lost weight.
You're different, Pastor Nick.
Danny, thanks for calling, man.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the info.
Appreciate you, man.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
God bless you all.
Bless you, man. So you're right on that college piece. We encourage a lot of our students to, like you said, do community college first.
Yeah.
Save money, go away later. I know that when I was in high school, it's a stigma of going to community college.
Well, and that's the thing, and there still is that.
We used to call it
the 13th
the
grade.
13th grade, yeah.
They still do, right? So I've been working in community colleges since I got out of college. Ohio, New Jersey. I'm in Maryland, and so I see that, and that stigma is still there. And yet, we just at my institution. They have this scholarship called the Jack Kent Cooke. He used to own the Washington Redskins.
Okay.
And he left a lot of money for scholarships, and our college, a community college, had more of those winners than the universities did.
Okay.
And these students are now going to Ivy League schools, right? With the money from that scholarship. But they're going there with hardly any debt because their first 2 years were at a community college.
I wish I did that.
I'm telling you, smart people do that.
I was dumb.
Yeah.
I was like,
because you listened and you didn't have anyone else telling you the other side, right?
And I like Temple too. I'm glad I went.
Right.
I learned a lot there, not just educationally, but about life.
Well, that's what
My 2
college
years
is
that I was
about.
there.
That's right.
But man, these student loans. So the SAT score.
Yeah.
Right? So now
they have this new adversity.
The adversity score, which to me, again, it goes back to everything this country does. We want to blanket everything,
right,
rather than seeing the nuance in the conversation.
Right.
I understand the premise. If those that don't know, they're going to start adding an adversity score to the SAT score, which means they're going to look at the child's environment that they grew up in, the median income, what kind of things are going on with the kids there, because it is true that children in a minority background usually score less on the SAT than your more affluent children, because of a lot of things. Schooling is different, availability for programs are different. Like, I know when I went to Temple, I took a computer class, and we had to learn to build a website.
Right.
The white kids that were in the class were far ahead of me.
Because of what they were exposed to.
Because they were exposed to. I wasn't exposed to building a website until that class.
Right.
And I'm sitting there looking around. They're all like, I'm sitting there still trying to, but it showed me something, though.
Right.
A lot of us, because our school system doesn't teach it.
Right.
Our parents can afford to send us to a camp. Right. Like, a lot of the big thing now is the STEM camps.
Right.
Most of our parents, that's why we're starting a STEM program here at the church. Most of our parents can afford to send our kids to a STEM camp. So, do I think that diversity school is cool because it helps with diversity? Yes.
I don't.
But I think it does, because it does help even the playing field somewhat. But do I think that it's totally all right?
No.
I can see the premise.
I get the premise. I get the gesture, right? It doesn't get at the root of the problem.
Yes.
And they are basing it on your social economics, the crime rate in your area. So they're saying it's not race-based.
Right.
But in many cases, it
it's
is.
affirmative action.
Right?
Yeah.
But and it's 1 to 100 points. The student will never see it. Their parents will never see it, but the schools will. And I think that there will be lawsuits about that, the unfairness of it. But it doesn't get to what about those students in those neighborhoods who are not going to college and still need, the assistance so that they are contributing citizens. What about doing something about the schools?
Yeah.
What about, and I think it's somewhere in Trenton, but I've seen it other places, Trenton or Newark, where they actually started doing all night, where the students could stay at the school, right, and have other activities. It put them in a safe environment, right, and that made them feel better. First of all, about school, but it also kept them out of trouble back in their neighborhoods, and so. Part of me says, let's get to the root of the problem, because I don't know who's going to determine the 1 to 100 score, and how do you determine it? And they're not doing this everywhere. They're doing it in a few select places.
To test it out still?
Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing is like this. I agree with you. This is why when people talk about affirmative action, reparations,
right.
My thing is, I don't think that every black person that came from slavery needs a check.
Right.
Why don't we fix the communities that, there's no
That's
reason
what you
why
do.
the Philadelphia school system, which is primarily black,
Right.
Should have that much of a deficit, schools crumbling, Camden, all these other places. Why don't we go in and build infrastructure, create jobs, create better school systems? It's hard to learn when you're hungry. It's hard to learn when you have no heat and air conditioning.
Right.
It's hard to learn when you got mold in the schools. Why don't we go in there and do that? And watch this. Do a good gentrification. Don't push the people out.
Right.
Right.
Where you raise the prices where they can't afford to live there anymore.
Let's work something out where the neighborhoods are better developed, and you're developing better individuals without taking out everybody in the system. So, because again, you can fix the college, but the real problem is the elementary school through high school.
And the other thing too, and this goes back to the community college, which doesn't even require an SAT, right? Because it's open access.
Okay.
And so again, you go there and you do well, you're then able to transfer to that college or university. There is no SAT involved.
And SAT doesn't really prepare you for college.
No, it does not. So
I don't remember none of it when I went to school.
So you get those 1 to 100 points, but if your school did not teach you the proper subjects, right? You didn't have the right books, you didn't have computer labs, you're still going to struggle. And that's why I think it's a gesture, but it doesn't get to the root of the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on real quick. Line 1, Bobby, how you doing?
I I am doing fine, Pastor Nick. How are you?
Doing well. How's things going? Talk to us.
Well, my issue is the SAT.
Okay.
I want to talk about those celebrity parents who are able to
the admissions.
have people take the test for the children so that they can get into these Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
My question is this: if they get into those schools, how is it that they do so well to graduate? Do they do? My concern is if they don't know how to take the SAT and can't do well there. What do they do when they get coursework? Is the coursework too difficult for them, or are they pushed along all the way to graduation?
Well, I know one in particular. Her daughter, when they found out that the news, when she found out on the news that her mom was implicated in this scandal, she was on the dean's yacht.
The yacht of a board member.
Yeah.
Right? So you get certain privileges in some cases.
I don't think she's concerned about doing her schoolwork because
No.
she was more worried about being a social media influencer than actually doing her
She
schoolwork.
actually said she had no interest in being in school. Right? So it is that raises a very good point. There is a family, they have not named them, who paid over $6 million for their son or daughter. And what I couldn't understand,
$6 million.
Well, just give them that money. If you're wanting them to succeed, give them that money to get their start. Why?
Do the math.
Because you know in your heart that how you're getting them into school isn't based on what they're able to do.
Right.
So why go through that? But someone said it was all about you're living in these neighborhoods where people are bragging about where their kids go to school.
It's trying to keep up.
Yeah. And so it's not whether they do well, is that they are at that particular
went to
institution. Yes.
You pay $6 million to me, $400,000.
It's crazy.
And then you got to pay tuition on top of it.
Yeah.
And all that stuff just to say my child went to this school.
Yes.
Well,
I mean, do the
Yes.
math. Like,
Yes.
like you said, give them $6 million, teach them how to invest.
Right.
Go to community college for 2 years. Go to
Oh, don't even go anywhere, But why go through that? And it's about status. That's exactly
Yeah, it
right.
is.
It's status.
And the crazy thing is, Felicity Huffman, they're recommending her get 4 months.
Yes.
There's a woman who was homeless, and she was taking her child to this school.
10 years.
10 years. What happened? In jail.
10 years in jail.
10 years
Yes.
in jail. She was taking her child to a school that was
Out of her district.
She got 10
10
years in jail. Just for taking her child to school. There was no fraud. There was no money laundering. Nothing.
No.
It's about how much money you're making. She was black, of course.
It's
Well, she
about
was black.
privilege.
Yeah, she's
It's
black.
privilege.
And she couldn't
And
afford.
entitlement.
She was living out of her car. But I guess her last known address was at this certain place, and was taking her child to that school because it was a better school than where she was at. 10 years.
And why should there be better and worse schools?
Right.
Because it's down to privilege and money. Who determines
Right.
what? People get on my nerves. I'm sorry, Bob.
It's awful.
I feel
mean,
Bishop
what's
rising up in me.
gonna
See,
change it?
it's terrible.
But it
it's
is.
bad.
It is.
What do you
The
think is
inequity.
gonna change this? Do you think that this system can be changed from inside?
Too much money involved in it.
Yeah, so what do we need? A revolution?
Yes.
I mean,
not a complete start over, but
I think they do have to look at how schools are funded,
Yeah.
right? And it needs to be realistic. We've got politicians like Elizabeth Warren saying make college free. It can't be free, right? Because something, in some way, the way it's structured, something has to get paid for.
Right.
But there is this idea of how do we restructure the way that it is.
Yeah.
It does need to be revolutionized.
It does.
revolution is the word.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. So here's my thing about school, right?
Yes.
So
You
Again,
two young people.
everything is down to money.
Yes.
I was my first year or two of school. I was wondering why in the world do I have to pay to take these classes? An art class, all these classes.
Electives.
That
They
have
call
nothing to do.
electives. We call
Nothing
those
to do
with your
with what I want
major.
to do.
Right.
And then the way they set the program up, nobody really graduates in 4 years anymore unless you have an extremely loaded schedule. Because they added more course requirements.
That's right.
Which tells me that now they say this is about making you a more well-rounded person.
Yes.
I think it's a bunch of malarkey. And it's about, another word popped in my head, it's about the money.
Yeah.
And if we want to make it easier for people to go to college, we need to change how much it costs to go to college, all the requirements to go to college, and let's be real here. It's about making more money. I'm sorry. It just is, to me, how it is.
There is a lot of truth to that. And I'm looking at the college where I'm working, where they are restructuring the program so that students can graduate faster.
Okay.
Because, again, the community college looks at their mission as helping to build the middle class.
Right.
And if it's taking you 5, 6, 7 years to get a 2-year degree, that's not helpful to anyone,
not at all.
right? So they're pulling back on remedial courses, but you still have to have them for those that need them. And also, when students need remedial courses, financial aid doesn't pay for that.
Okay.
So that puts students in a bind, right? But I like what I see in terms of where I am, where they're structuring it so that students get out in a much shorter time. That's part of what has to occur.
And we need a revolution of schools. Because I'm literally sitting in my art. I had to take 2 of them.
Yeah.
Why am I in an art class in a Greco-Roman decor, which is cool? I can read a book on that. Why I need a whole semester paying $1,500 a credit for something I don't need for my major? It comes down to there's some money in there. I'm sorry, it just is.
Yeah,
it is.
The way schools are structured.
Too pragmatic.
No, I think that's right. When you look at a college or a university, their funding is based on what the state gives them and tuition.
Right.
And most states are not paying their share.
That's true.
A community college is based on the state, the county, and tuition.
Okay.
In every state where I've worked, the state and counties have not given their share, right? But then within the community college, they also don't want to put it on the backs of the students.
Right.
There's something wrong with the structure for how schools are funded, and yet you're required and expected to have the latest technology, top computers, all of those things to train those students, which does cost money.
Yeah. And
It does need a restructuring, being revolutionized, just looking at the whole system. Is there a need? Absolutely. I think there's not, and I keep saying this, there is not enough credit given to the mission of community colleges where you can get the things that you need, whether you need a certificate program because you're going into welding or a certificate program because you're going into cybersecurity, and they go out and get a job and make more than teachers and so many other folks, right, in 2 years or less. But I think a lot of people aren't aware of those kinds of opportunities.
And I think we're pushing college so much on people that we forget about folks. Some folks are better in trades. Like we had a young man, he said he doesn't feel like school's for him.
Right.
So he wants to be an auto mechanic. There's nothing wrong with that. You get out of high school, you go into a program that teaches you how to be an auto mechanic, do all this stuff. I said, but here's the thing. Just don't look into being an auto mechanic. Look into owning your own.
That's right.
And go into those programs that teach you how to do it.
That's right.
And again, we talked about this before. We push college so much that most of the jobs now are trade jobs, but nobody can do them because...
Well, so Camden County College, where I worked there for 10 years, right, they have an excellent automotive program, but they also have an excellent business program so that you can be that entrepreneur, but you also know how to work on the cars, right? And so people, again, think college and they think the traditional to get that associates, get the bachelor's, get the master's, and the focus on the trades isn't there, but that's what community colleges do.
And we need to get trade and college. Everybody's not a trade person.
Right.
Everybody's not a college person. Get them where you fit in at.
Right.
But I think that there needs to be a, to me, I love capitalism.
Yes.
But I also understand the faults with it.
Yeah.
And these are one of the faults where we prioritize money over people, money over process, money over everything. and money at the end of the day becomes our God.
And so therein lies another thing. There is a ranking of the countries that were the happiest and the healthiest, and we rank pretty low. We've never been in the top 10, even though we are the wealthiest.
To be a Christian country.
And we are considered to be the wealthiest. We have never broken the top 10.
No.
Right? So
here's some apples here. The happiest countries are the ones that are the most secular, don't have much religion, the most socialist. They pay high taxes, but they get stuff free, and everybody's calm.
Yes.
That says a lot.
That says a lot.
But the capitalist system that's supposed to be a Christian country, which it's not, never was, is the ones where you got the most unhappy people.
Right.
That says something right there.
That's
not
right.
that God isn't real, religion isn't real.
Right.
Our priorities are messed up.
Priorities are messed up.
You can have a hybrid system of capitalism and socialism included in there. We got a minute left, y'all. We keep talking about this. I'm going to blow a gasket.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Join us tomorrow for our 8 and 11 a.m. worship services. We're so glad you can join us today. Thank you again, Jane. We appreciate you.
I am so happy when you invite me.
I know you are.
Yes.
The people like you too. Make sure you tune in next week at 9 a.m. Go to somebody's church tomorrow. Again, we have service here, 8 and 11 a.m. service at Bethany Baptist Church. We would love to see you. Come on out. We're going to go celebrate with Bishop. Send him a message. Send him an email. Shoot him a message on social media. Tell him you love him. We have our appreciation brunch for him and his family today. So please shoot him some love today, anytime during the course of this week, to let him know you appreciate him. As Bishop always says, faith acts like a thing is so, even when it's not so, that it might be so. God bless you. We'll talk to you next week.